This is like the
It's
microphone.
gonna be slightly well with
Hello, welcome, welcome to our supplemental caption contest commentary here. We actually have the artist joining us in this short bit here. Amy Kurzweil, please, Amy.
Hello, happy to be here.
Thank you, welcome. I guess I'll share. You did see who the winner was, but
well, why don't we also see some of the candidates for the drawing? But so that's Amy's drawing, and very nice indeed. Amy and I go back a ways when with the New Yorker.
Bob, do you remember me pitching you the original cartoon of this one?
Was it a whole picture, or did you just show it to me?
I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I had my original caption in this cartoon, and I
the original. Yeah, well, of course I remember it exactly. Of many thousands of cartoons that crossed the desk. I don't remember anything else. All I remember is the captions of cartoons now. It's my memory trades. No, I don't actually remember it. It's like probably more relevant now than ever.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been interested in I guess AI and all of these fields, and you come by it naturally, I would say. I wanted to explain that a little bit, if you don't mind. What your
my interest in brains and vats, yeah, and
brains and vats and AI, because
AI.
your dad is very famous in this field, Ray Kurzweil.
Right.
Who,
my father inculcated me from a young age with an appreciation for brains and vats and artificial intelligence.
Well, okay, so why don't we go into the brains and vats? I mean, that not everybody would really understand that.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's you bring up my father as a connection to this image, and I think I have a very, very close connection to this image in my father, because my father commissioned a cartoon in 1965 or something like that. It's like his first experience with cartooning. He commissioned a cartoon of this brain in a vat thinking, it's a full life, isn't it, Charlie? And in the background, you see like, all these like machines that the brain is hooked up to. And he has this on display in his home. And I think that's like one of the earliest cartoons I ever saw was this brain in vat cartoon. And it was by an artist named Alan Wallerstein, who I think is still around. So if he's out there, shout out to him. So that image really like imprinted in my head. And it's also a reference to this Cartesian dualism, the idea that we could be just brains in vats and hallucinating all these experiences, or maybe we're in the Matrix and we're.
Well, I don't think Descartes himself had any idea about brains in vats, but it's a similar idea in that how do we know that the outside world really exists?
Yeah, this is sort of the modern.
We're not dreaming it, and he was trying to say, well, what is the one thing that I do know is that at least I know I'm thinking. And in the end, that's all that we can really know, although nobody actually believes that's all we really know. People believe there's a real world, but it also goes to the, when you're dealing with people who are concerned with consciousness and machines, and they will ask you something. If they're complete materialists, they'll say, well, how do I even know that anybody else is conscious, right?
Right, yeah.
I might just be the only one. And I sort of think that's a little narcissistic.
That's the salt.
Somehow you were the only one. Anyway, so this is sort of rich philosophical drawing. I don't know how philosophical our captions. Well, I don't know. Well, there was one, right? And there was one that you liked. Which started with, I saw the best.
The Ginsberg reference. Yeah, I love that one. What did you guys think of that one? It was like, I've seen the best brains of my generation.
Right. We discussed it. It was generally, we wanted the shorter ones. No, we did appreciate that. I think we were worried about how many people would get it and the length.
I mean, I think if you look at the video, we really get into discriminating and deciding what a good caption is very different than I would say, the caption contest is, which
Yeah.
is so that cartoon is like a show-offy cartoon, right?
Right. It's very
You appreciate it, but
right.
you say, oh, I get the reference. We both feel smart
Right.
by
Yeah, I
looking
think
at
what
it.
I like about this one is that there's so many different ways to read it, and I wondered if my first way of reading it is actually a little bit different than what other people are seeing when they read it. So what I see, let me slip into something a little more thoughtful, is that she's having a conflict with her roommate or domestic partner, or wife or whoever. They're having a conflict, and she's just done something unthoughtful. So she's like, hold on, I'm going to take a moment, and now I'm going to come back and be more thoughtful. But I think there's a lot of different ways to interpret it. Maybe an outfit that's more thoughtful. And and then the thoughtfulness, obviously the reference between brains being full of thoughts. So there's just a lot going on with this caption. I think it's really good.
Isn't she just going out though? It looks like her friends come round, and they're going out for the evening or whatever, and she's got to she's got to get ready. That feels like the moment you're catching. Was that the intention? If that was true, then it's less an argument and more state of mind for the evening ahead. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the way I intended it, but I just like the way that this caption introduces another option for what might be going on, behind the scenes with this.
I think that's one of the interesting things about the caption contest when it works correctly, or I mean, there's no way for it to work correctly. I do think there's been a drift towards just wordplay and puns because of the difficulty of reconciling really in a real cartoon, as you would all the frames of reference. And also because Lawrence and Wood has pointed this out also, the judging happens very fast. And so wordplay is something that you can see and you can judge quickly, whereas other kinds of captions, you can't judge as quickly, whether they work or not. I think here it's like one of the problems is just thinking when you can only think so much about it before it becomes confusing, and you sort of stop because when you say Joel says, well, she's going out for the evening. Really? She's just been hanging around all day in her bathrobe.
She's all day at work. She's had a shower, and now she's going out.
I mean, this is me in my daytime pajamas. Like as a cartoonist, you hang around in your pajamas all day. That's
also
there's also maybe like a pandemic, like possibly a sort of pandemic.
5,000 years when the aliens come and they see our dead civilization, they find this cartoon. Just like when we look at like Renaissance cartoons and we don't realize all the symbolism. They'll say, oh, the symbolism of the ray finger was saying there is really one, they'll interpret there was really just one consciousness that existed. That was always in these cartoons, the singular consciousness, the consciousness of God, the oversoul. That's what this cartoon is all about. They'll misinterpret it. But when we looked at it, or when I look at that, I have these. I think the first thing is, did you get a little funny thrill out of it? Did something happen before that? But then, when you look at it, I gave this points for, the joke happened with the last word. That's always nice. Something Bruce Eric Kaplan, Beck does a lot. Where it's the last word. There's something elegant about it. And when you look at how people judge the caption contest and the crowdsourcing, you see when they mess up the joke and they give away the joke in the beginning. So, we like that. Was that that was the winner, Trevor?
This is the winner, correct? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And we had other ones.
Yeah, on our site, you can find the other 6 or all the other 5, but.
We had another one. This is where I keep my unmentionables.
Yes, that's what Lawrence really wanted to push for.
So a lot of these were macabre. It was sort of like there was a
I found it interesting during the judging that the more often I saw the same concept, the less amused I was by it.
Yes.
Well, I think you really got something if you were able to either execute that concept the most elegantly or do something completely unexpected, which is why that Allen Ginsberg one really charmed me, because it was absolutely nothing like any of the other entries. So
no, we've definitely said that if the first one, if it's a great one, but it gets repeated as it goes on, it takes
but
the shine away.
That's what happens in the actual crowdsourcing on GitHub. If you, in that even the best captions are more people rate them as unfunny than funny because they see them a lot and they're really comparing them to other captions rather than thinking, are they actually, you know, the winning captions here, a lot of people will rate it as unfunny, even though if you think this is completely unfunny, that doesn't make any sense, really.
Humor has so much to do with your expectations.
I want to shout out here before we move on to ask Amy some questions about her. We did get a write-in of someone very upset that the brains were pink because brains should be gray. and what a pedantic, unfunny. I'm happy people participate, but I think pink brains are canonical, and it's they're.
It's also not a realistically colored cartoon, right?
Yeah,
I think you probably did. It was just the color scheme in a way, right?
No, it was specifically brains are not pink. But I think that we do all.
Well, there was a lot of there were captions about gray matter, right?
Yes, the gray matter we liked too. It didn't make it,
yeah.
but we did highlight that.
But now when you realize it, given that they were pink brains, the gray
Maybe
matter,
that's part of the joke, right?
we just sort of ignored that in the cartoon, which is.
Well, I think it was like finding anything in gray.
I think we just have to do the whole contest over again.
Yeah, it's moot
just
now.
have to do it all over again.
Clearly, I need to go to medical school to learn.
Yeah, and you know what? The lobes are a little bit off from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's what we did. But Amy's got doing a lot of things, and you're some of the stuff you're doing. I know you have a book coming out, and you also teach a class, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'll plug the class first. I teach monthly cartoon classes via my Patreon. You can just find me on Patreon or find me on Instagram. And started teaching these classes virtually during the pandemic once a month. We look at New Yorker cartoons and do a prompt, and it's become this really nice community. I mean, when you're a New Yorker cartoonist, people are often reaching out to you like, how do I do it? And now I'm just like, join my my class. I'll teach you everything. It's really great. So the next class is July 2nd. So
and how do you actually do what people
go to Patreon?
How would they actually go and
so you go to patreon.com/Amy Kurzweil, sign up for the creative community. It's $10, and then I'll just email you a link to class. You'll get all the information.
Okay, so why don't we also include that in the newsletter, Joel? When we send it out, to promote Amy's.
It's amazing how many cartoonists there are out there. There's just so many talented people. And a lot of now I get to brag about this community. Like we've had a lot of people publish, a couple people publish in the New Yorker. Airmail, you've got some Airmail people from my community. Yeah, it's good. We're taking over.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, well, I mean, I am, thrilled about just the whole new generation of people doing it. It's hard to make a living at it. It's hard to get into the New Yorker. Just that was always the case, but on the other hand, in a way, it's easier now that you can. You don't have to go through a long process. You can have a cartoon in the New Yorker. Then you can have that as a credit. But I do think a lot of wonderful material is being produced.
Yeah, we can't make a living solely on publishing cartoons anymore. It's just not possible. So I think in response, we've had to create community around, okay, so we're doing this and we love this, but what else are we doing? How else can we support each other? So that's part of how my Patreon has been functioning. Wonderful. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, and then my book, here's the advanced reading copy of my book. It's called Artificial, A Love Story.
It's a nice, it's a graphic novel, right?
It's a graphic novel, and it's a lot of pages. It took me 7 years. so I feel so free. Like, I finished about a month ago, and it's coming out in October, and it's like, being sent to the printer.
Show us a page or two so we can actually see it.
Oh, let me show you the brain in the vat. Let's see if I can.
Brain in the vat. Okay.
Okay. So this book is about my father, who we mentioned, who's an inventor and someone who writes about the future of technology and the future of humanity. And it's about this archive of documents that he's been collecting from his father, who is a musician and a pianist and a conductor. And he saved this archive of his father's documents. And recently, he took all the writing from my grandfather and fed it into an algorithm and created this large language model chatbot that you can talk to. And I was a part of that project. I helped by collecting some of these documents and feeding them into the computer. And I engaged with this chatbot. I have engaged with it. And so the book is about that experience and about getting to know my grandfather through his artifacts and through technology. And then it's also about my life and sort of what I learned about myself as I'm learning about my grandfather.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
It's
and wonderful and very au courant, right? I mean, in that you started this book well before the ChatGPT or all of this that is now part of the culture that everybody knows about. I think that'll help the book.
Hopefully. I mean, now people actually know what chatbots and large language models are. I don't know if they understand what they are, but they know what it means to talk to an algorithm. And before, it felt like I was talking about this really sci-fi experience. And I think it still feels a little sci-fi for people, but they actually know what the experience is. And so it used to be kind of hard to talk about. Now it's easy.
What your dad has done is being done by people who were at either OpenAI or Google with character AI, in which you can talk to historical figures as large language models. And it is I mean, it's sort of interesting something in that it may become a way that we remember people. When we have, I mean, now all of these plugins, you can, interact with PDFs and stuff. I mean, I guess it's both.
Well, there's this
interesting, fascinating, and a little creepy too, right?
Yeah, there's this spectrum from like a book to a consciousness, where it's like, a book is has some animation to it. You're bringing to life the words, and then once you get AI involved, it's really just kind of reconfiguring the words of the book and feeding them to you. And then when you get generative AI involved, it's like learning from those words and generating new words. And so there's like this sort of spectrum of animation that you're moving towards as technology gets more advanced. And so I think people ultimately want to ask the question, like, when do those algorithms sort of become sentient? Which you and I, Bob, think is more far-fetched.
Yeah. So I don't think they do, but because there's there's a substrate, there's an organic thing that is part of it. But what's interesting, and your dad, is a forerunner of all of this. And Amy's dad is Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil believes he's been projecting that there's going to be human level AGI intelligence in 2029. And I remember, because I had some interchanges with your dad, especially when I had created, me and Jamie Brew created Botnik, which was this humor AI collaborative thing. And I asked him like when he thought that AI would be able to really generate real humor. And he said 2029. And I said late or early 2029, because I wanted to know how much time we had, Botnik. But he definitely was very prescient in terms of the conversation people are having now. Although your dad thinks it's going to be beneficial. Now it's the other side of it is is really the other side of the coin is, it's going to be great. It's going to be the singularity. And once it's there, it's going to turn all of us into paper clips. So,
he doesn't think we're going to turn into paper clips, but
no.
there are some concerns. Anyway, speaking of
let's see. So let's see what we can see.
There's a spread from the book. It's quite a sort of uniquely organized book. Like some pages are really dense like this, and other pages are like more quiet like this, no text.
What was the technology you used to create it all in terms of the layout program and everything?
Very advanced technology called paper.
Really? So you did it. So you didn't do it in InDesign or any of these programs?
Well, every page is in Photoshop, so the text was typeset in InDesign, and a lot of the text I did also in Photoshop, but all the layouts are by hand. Like I really like to work just with exactly what the page is going to be. And I use a light box for kind of tracing.
So you cut and pasted all this stuff and then you would scan it in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's
so
great.
Here's my brain and vat. In this scene, my father's giving me a tour of the paintings on his wall.
Yeah.
And so he's got paintings and documents. So like right there is my grandfather's diploma from Vienna. He escaped Vienna in 1938. He fled the Nazis just in time, which is a sort of a plot point in the book historically. And he got his PhD in music a few months before Kristallnacht, and he fled with his PhD. So that was a dramatic moment in his life, and my father has his PhD diploma on the wall. And then the brain in the vat cartoon is right here. It's a full life, isn't it, Charlie?
Wow. This
is my rendering of that cartoon. The book has a lot of hand-created artifacts in it, so I would do everything by hand, and I would sometimes use light boxes and tracing, but I was creating all these artifacts by hand, which was a really interesting experience. And that's partly why the book took so long, because there's
what about first of all, the book sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
I mean, it sounds unique and interesting and just great. And I wonder, do you have all the artifacts that created the book somewhere? Do you have because someone might want those, because what I realized is it's really interesting that you've created
a shadow archive. Yeah.
So that's interesting, because now people create everything, let's say in InDesign or what before that, Quark. And so there's no original material really, right? Mm-hmm. When you're all digital, and it can be wonderful. I know Ellis Rosen works like that, and his work is fantastic. Still, there's not this other thing. Mm-hmm. And but so I think all of that is wonderful. It'd be great to have an exhibit of it sometime.
Yeah, I just have this big fire hazard in my apartment, all this paper. And I would when I finished each page, I would put it up in the wall and just look at it. And so I have some videos of that I can share with you if you're interested. But I did just love being surrounded by my labor, because it's so taxing, and it can be lonely to work on a book for so many years. So you just put the pages up on the wall and you feel it makes you feel a bit better. Yeah. But I would love to be able to just put them all up in an exhibit, all 365 pages, and just see what that looks like.
Well, that sounds great. Wow, the smoke from the fire is pretty intense here. Now, I mean, I can smell the outside.
Yeah, you should keep your windows closed.
It's a lovely sort of haze. It's very pretty.
Do you have any original art lying around? Because you should make sure it's protected.
Yeah, keep your window closed for today.
I think smoking some of the original art could add a sort of barbecue flavor to it.
Bob, do you have a bunch of originals? Just what do you do with your original drawings?
Well, I used to keep them under my bed, but now I have flat files, and I was thinking, I mean, because I was talking to my wife the other day, that I've got hundreds and hundreds of cartoons, and a lot of New Yorker originals, and I really haven't organized it. I mean, both in creating the cartoon bank and then doing this stuff with Cartoon Stock, it's sort of ironic, and I'm such a disorganized person, and maybe part of that was the desire to be organized digitally. which, you know, it enables you to be organized. I think also that's my fascination with AI and generative generative intelligence, that as my own intelligence fades and disappears, I find that, oh, well, this is sort of nice. This is coming along just in time.
But AI is also the ability to organize information through a large language model is really amazing. You know, instead of having this huge archive of my grandfather's writing where I have to like figure out how to find what he said, you know, if I can just talk to the AI that has a semantic understanding of, you know, what I'm asking it and has an understanding of his
archive, and I think that's
just find it for me. And it's like, that is kind of a consciousness in a way, you know?
Well, it's functional. It's
functional.
It's functional, and the but you know, there's a lot being offered now along those lines for essentially for sites or for archives of PDFs where you upload them and you know, sort of query them. But also with your grandfather, it'd be interesting just to see. I guess you can have one of the I guess an interesting idea is once you have this sort of simulated person, maybe they'll go on to create new things. So maybe they're not just trapped in the past. I mean, that's the idea. But I just saw a video by the philosopher, this is called Machine Learning Channel, Daniel Dennett, who is very worried. It's funny, all the people who are actually, I don't know, I'm not at all worried about it. It's the philosophers who's some, you know, worried about this. So what you're doing with your grandfather, which sounds great, is very worrying to a class of pundits and thinkers in that of creating fake, you know, fake people, you know, counterfeit people. They're jumping way ahead to this idea of.
Well, those concerns come up. I mean, everything you can think about with this topic does come up in my book, but those concerns about sort of to what extent you have a duty to preserve the past as it really was is a big concern. And of course, when you're a memoirist, that's already a concern. I'm drawing an analogy in the book between ways that we've already kind of memorialized people and then these new ways that we're going to memorialize them. And so what are the concerns that are actually new? One of the things that I thought about a lot, speaking of the like digital versus the analog, is that preserved artifacts of somebody from the past that they actually put their physical body on, you know, so the handwriting of my grandfather and even the type, you know, the things that he typed and then kind of made corrections on. I have a lot of letters where I could see him crossing things out and I can actually see his thought process of how he was editing his own writing. That's very intimate. That really makes me feel like I have some insight into him in a way that I don't with just digital text. So I think that's a theme that comes up in the book, the digital versus the analog.
Well, I think I mean, I've thought about that in terms of cartooning and cartoons that I did when I started out, you know, in the early 70s. And, you know, it might be this drawing that was just done in pencil and ink. And there it is. It's lasted all these years. It's on the old, I guess it was typing. It was good. I can't even remember what the kind of typing paper was. But when I did it, I wanted good typing paper. And it's really held up so well. And just to see these marks that he made, sometimes in pencil or for the New Yorker, it might have been Lee Lorenz writing something in his handwriting on the back of it. And
that's great.
How long, honestly, this will last very much longer than the people who created it.
Right.
And it is this, there's a poignancy to it. I don't know.
And there's actually information. There's information about the body of the person in their own handwriting. And, you know, that's important information, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a whole field of that, isn't there? Graphology, which I think anybody looking at my handwriting would think correctly. I'm insane. But
yeah.
But also the book sounds great. Everybody who sees it should absolutely buy this book.
Yeah. Roz Chast says it's good. Right, here's the Roz Chast blurb.
Oh, great. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And I could think, I'm sure Roz, makes sense. Roz would love this. I'm really I'm really interested to read it.
I sent it to you. You should read it.
Oh, right. Well, there you're now, but it's a PDF. It's so.
Yeah, are you waiting for the hard copy?
What's that?
Are you waiting for the hard copy?
I'm not waiting for the hard copy. I should read the PDF. You know how it is. Where I mean, I just finished reading a book that someone sent me, which has views completely contrary to everything I believe, just to show that I wasn't trapped in confirmatory bias. And it was so hard. It was so hard because it was you know, this apocalyptic novel about climate change and everything else, and how everything is just going to be horrible, and that the, you know, that the big problem in the world is people. We can only just get rid of them, and you know,
well,
it'd be fine.
That fits with the robot apocalypse themes, right? If people are going to become paperclips,
I mean, if it is an apocalypse, it's not worth even thinking about.
Yeah,
but anyway, your book is going to definitely be out before the apocalypse.
That's one thing I made sure of.
That's our prediction. So we will. I guess we can sign off now, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Amy. And please.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, no, this was fun, and it's
yeah,
brilliant, really.
Yeah, we'll include your link to the book, and thanks for joining.